Welcome to Trading Lounge and the Indices for Monday. I'm in Sydney, so it's 6 o'clock in the morning. So what I would like to talk about today is that when markets become bearish, we all tend to start wondering about how bearish they can come. So we'll look at a couple of bigger bearish counts for the market as well. However, as we've been moving along, we've had this as wave 4 sitting here. And then we've been looking for wave 1 and 2 to pull back here, and then 3, 4, 5 to move up here for a larger wave 1 and an ABC at that point. So that would track out as wave 2 in progress here, looking back for a 61.8% move, and then wave 3, 4, and 5 up here, and then a larger ABC pattern here to correct all of this particular trend here. So let's just go in and have a little look at that for a moment, going from the daily, weekly to the daily, get the brain cells working Monday morning. So we've been looking at it like this. I need to do a couple of things here. I need to talk about this particular top. First of all, though, as you know, if you've been tracking what we've been doing, we're looking at an impulse wave to the upside and then a correction back for wave 2. Now this top here is a little bit confusing because well, let's just have a look. Different markets that are related to the S&P have got different tops. So if we look at the futures market here for a moment, these are the large contracts. So that's not the top, this is the top here. So in this case, one would have to count it coming down from here as some sort of ABC pattern coming down here, right? When we look at the SPX, it's very subtle. We can see, well, it's a bit difficult to see really, but I'll do my best here. But when we sort of stretch this up here, we can see that this is a little bit higher than this one here. I mean, it's sort of, it's like I said, it's quite subtle. So in this case, we'd have to put wave 1 over here and look at this as an ABC here, and then perhaps 1 and 2 here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we definitely got further to go down. Okay, so you'll see that in stock. So yeah, so this top is a little bit different. I mean, even if we look at the SPY, for example, the SPY has got this, the SPY, the ETF, has got this as the top here. So we would need to use that there as the top, and then look at this here as 5 waves down, as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the A, the B, and then 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5. So we still need to come down here further. The S&P 100 has got this is the top way over here in this case, So counting the top could be a little bit difficult for just S&P traders as such. So I'm mindful of that. So in those cases, we need to look around the markets a little bit and have a look at other markets that sort of related. One of the things that we do have here as well that I do want to point out is that this particular move down through here as wave 4 here is not in 5 waves, so it's in 3 waves, so it's corrective in nature. So at some point in the future, this top will need to be taken out. Now, this top here didn't really take it out at this particular point. The NASDAQ is also a bit lower as well. It was the banks that took the top out here. Banks and other markets, Berkshire Hathaway and some other markets have clearly taken this top out here. But the tech stocks have struggled to do that, because the tech stocks, if we just look at the NASDAQ here at the 20,000 here, I mean, obviously the 20,000 is a big number, and it's difficult to get through that, of course. And we always see consolidations at large numbers, not always, but most of the time, depending where we are within the structure. If we're at the beginning of a structure or the end of a structure, we'll get a consolidation. If we're in a parabolic move, of course we won't. But just pointing out that this top hasn't been made above this one here. So I think one of the main takeaways here is that because this is corrective here, we still need to take out this top. So what we're going to do is we're just going to wait for this to come down here, and we'll look at this in a bit more detail in a moment. Looking at this as the top on the futures market, because we don't really trade the index. I mean, if you're trading, if you're trading the futures market, then this would be the top. If you're trading the SPY, then this is also the top as well. The actual index is you're not trading that. So we need to work this particular trend down through here, so we can come down to the 5,300. And as I mentioned, I can't actually recall, but there's some gaps in. Two sets of gaps in this market here, so it looks like they will be covered. Now, just before we leave here, would it be possible to look at, let's just say that the market got more bearish and it came down here further? Is that possible? Well, it's possible with the banks, actually. So it's possible to put this over to here. Now we're just sort of talking about bigger bearish pictures, and when we do that, it's always good just to do one step at a time. So in this case here, we'd look for an A wave and a B wave up here, and then move this down here further as wave C. So that would be one possibility. And just to sort of back that statement up, or this statement up, we can see Nvidia like this. Okay, so Nvidia would be looking at an A and a B and a C for wave 4 here. So it's not a long stretch to do that. Okay, so that's one thing that we could view as well. The other thing here too is like having this as a B wave over here and a C wave over here, and an A, put this back here for a moment, would be the bank. So we don't normally look at the banks, but I think that we can look at the banks to get an understanding. So BAC here, that most, the S&P and the NASDAQ, they lifted up in December 2022. So this particular market is about a year behind in terms of its count to the upside. But in this case here, and banks on an intraday basis kind of move together to a point, so we could look at a wave C here for this. And one of the other reasons for this too is that if we look at Morgan's, which is because this is Bank of America is lagging, and this is a leader here, so it's good to look at both of them. And as a leader here, we have 5 waves up here, so we can label this here going back to from 100 roughly here, counting up here as 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and gets a little bit complicated, but 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5 for the third, fourth, fifth for the third, the fourth and the fifth, and put a top in here. So in this case, sure, we could actually look at this here as also a wave 1 to the upside and back for wave 2 and then moving to the upside. But the banks look like they're going to be doing this type of thing here before moving higher at that point. So this one here has taken out the top here, all right? This one here hasn't taken out the top. And then when we look at Goldilocks over here, we can see that it's about the same here. It hasn't quite taken out the top here. So that means that we could put this over to here. We could also view it as wave 1 to the upside and pull back for wave 2 here. Or we could look at it like this coming down through here, which is also likely as well. So a bit of a toppy affair for, well, most markets really, but just looking at the banks, because the banks have been holding the S&P 500 up as Morgan's make a new high here. Because the other interesting thing here gets you thinking is, well, Pete, if you're putting wave 5 of 1 in here, shouldn't you be doing that with the S&P and the NASDAQ? Well, the thing is we made a nice clear high here above here, so that's doable. But we haven't made a new high above the S&P, and we haven't made a new high above the NASDAQ here as well, either here. So, so that's why I was sort of thinking that I've had this count for a long time, as you know, and looking for, 3, 4, 5 to sort of top this out here and then have this, ABC pattern come into play here. So, just a matter of working through, but I know that we all get a little bit edgy when we see, when we're facing a bit of a bear market here. So all I can say is that we just have to, as always, go one step at a time. And when we take these steps, if we feel confident in that step, well, then we'll trade that step. If we're not confident in it, well, then we don't trade it. Just don't go pushing buttons emotionally, in your relationship with the market or your relationship with anyone, so it doesn't do you any good. Okay, so this particular move through here, we're just going to go into the intraday and sort of break that down a little bit here. So basically wave one up here we've been looking for, and we're looking for a move back into this space here. Now this could be put here like this. That would be logical at this point. We could also put it like this. I get that you could probably squeeze it in and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and finish off. So there's a couple of ways to play that out there. If we just go further in there and investigate that, this is that wave one up there. So it would have 1 and 2 here, and 3 and 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here for the A and the B. And then this one here, the reason I've put this wave here and here, because it would give me a little bit, because this is our 61.8% around the 5-3 here. So in this case here, this would give us 3, 4, and 5 here. You know what I mean? It would give us this type of finish off here for this. But like I said, as I've been sort of chatting away in this top and this bear market here, is we're not going to make a move on the long side until we see a nice clear 5 waves up to to the upside, and then we'll look 5 waves here, then we can look to go long at that point. Anyway, we'll talk about that a bit more. But so we could actually finish down here with wave 1 and 2 here, and 3 and 4 and 5, and finish just here on this. Otherwise we'll have the 4 and the 5 here. So I've given, we're going with the bad news, a deeper move rather than the more shallow move. So taking this particular move here over into the NASDAQ here, so we've talked about the top a little bit, and in a way this is a classic trading levels pattern here too, where we have the arrival at a level, the reaction, and then the first high above the level, and so on at that point. So that would, it looks a bit like this here. We've got the arrival, we're in the reaction stage here. We think we got the low in, and we're looking for the first high above the level. Then we'll have wave 1 and 2 over here. So just basic patterns in this case. So the only mistake that I can sort of see that there's a couple of ways to label this, and I'll just do them real quick, is that we've got this as wave 1 here and looking back for wave 2. Now if that's incorrect, then wave 4 would need to go over here, and like I said, Nvidia is possible to do this. Microsoft is not that far off being able to do this as well. Google's already we've already got wave 1 top in here already. So is it possible to put this wave 1 top in here? Yeah, I think it is. I think it's possible to do that. But we'll look at that as our sort of third step rather. But we'll just stay with this for the time being. So from a weekly into daily, and this is how we're looking at it here. I don't have the best looking 5 waves up here. I mean, I could, the main, you can see 1 and 2 here, but we could also use that as an A and a B wave up here and a C wave up here. So to have this sitting over here is quite doable, yeah. So anyway, obviously the support's down at the 18 there, so that's where we'll be looking to head on down to. So I think I've updated the 20. I have, maybe haven't. Yeah. So this correction here was quite clear that it's not this high or one of these highs on the S&P futures or the SPY or anything like that. It's back over here. So in this case, we can look at this as the A wave, the B wave, and then down for 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And when we spoke on Friday, I think it was, or whenever it was, that we were looking for this wave 4 here. Now, we know wave 4s can get complicated. In this case, it was just a simple ABC, nothing to panic about, but, I'm always panicking. So, and so we need to look down here. So when you look at this from wave 4 to 5 here, if you've got a little bit of inkling about Elliott, you can pick some of the things up. We can pick this strong move up here. So this is likely to be wave 3 here. We know the 18 is going to be roughly the support. Can we count this down as 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 here? Probably, and 3, 4, 5. So we're going to be coming down, expect it to come into the 18. But as it comes into the 18 of 100, 200 and 300 here, it's going to get a little bit, wherever that 300 is, that's a little group 1 of 18 here. So it's going to get it's going to find support in here and get really complicated in here. So don't go trading in here. This is not, if you're short already, then that's fine. But this is, not, we don't trade into group 1 like this. It gets a little bit bumpy, but if you're already in, stop away. There will be support on 3 and there'll be support on 2 and 1 and so on. So this particular market has, can finish off a little bit earlier. So that means that some of those stocks that we're looking at in the NASDAQ, some of the leaders, they will also finish off a little bit early. But I can see that there's a bit of a mixed bunch out there of stocks. So let's just go in and have a look at those. So Apple's quite simple. We've also got wave 4 here. We're on the intraday here on 1,000 ticks. So we've got wave 4 here and wave 1 to the upside. So this pattern here is the same as the NASDAQ here, as looking as wave 1 up here and looking back for wave 2. So in this case here, we can look at this as the A wave, the B wave here, and then 1 and 2 in here. And I was thinking that 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5 for the 3rd, 4th and 5th. So a bit of a journey to play out here for this, down into the 210 area here. 213 and 215 will obviously give really good support, as well as 218 in here. From 10 to 20 here, there'll be 1, 2, 3, 5 and 8. And when we talk about 8, we talk about group 2 as well. So, but, we should be heading on down for this, for this. So that's all pretty simple, I reckon, at this particular point. So it's just a bit of a waiting game for this, but it does help us with our timing a little bit, because if we take that on board here, and then we, if a market is clear, we can use it in lots of different ways for markets that are not clear. This is another clear one here. So we've had wave 1 for Amazon here, same from wave 4 here to wave 1 here. We've been looking for an A wave. We've been working through the B wave here. It's obviously finally settled in here. We can see the first impulse wave working down here. So we'll come down to these lows here and have a little bounce off that. And then we'll have wave 3, 4 and 5 come down. We'll, don't pay too much attention to where I put these sort of things. It's just a little bit of a mud map. But once it's completed, we can look at it in hindsight. We'll say, well, obviously there's 1 and 2 and there's 3, and wave 4 was complicated, and we can see 5 waves within 5, so we should have a low in. Let's wait for the first impulse wave to come into play, and then we'll look to move into that on the long side if that's looking good at that point. And if the other markets, markets need to support each other. They're a bit of a herd animal. They all sort of move along through the paddock together to a point. They can spread out now and again. So Nvidia, this is one where we can look at, we've had wave 4 over here and we've had wave 1 over here. So now I'm changing that. I'm going to put wave 4 here, and because this has come down, because when you think about it, when you've got Amazon that needs to come down and Apple needs to come down that far, well, that's a fair bit of time, isn't it? So that by the time that happens, that is going to be below here. So it is interesting that that's there. The only other option I can see here is calling this a wave 1 up the top here as an alternative, at that point. And you might say, well, Pete, can we put wave, can it be a top in here of something else? Well, then it comes to the point where one would say that if you put a top in the market there, and you're an Elliott person, well, then you would be saying that this is the end of the whole trend. This is the end of the markets, basically. That's what you'd be saying to yourself. So is this the end of technology? Is this the end of Nvidia? Is this the end of AI and generative AI and supercomputers and all the rest of it? Is this the so it's, to me, it's not. I don't see it like that. Do you know what I mean? But I understand the influence of negative and positive in our own heads and in the markets. So I won't go into the intraday here, but we will get a bounce. There will be some support at the 100 here, so we'll just work through that. Because I've burnt up a lot of time in terms of talking about the S&P and the NASDAQ, I won't bother going into places where I don't need to go into. This is Meta, Facebook here. So in this particular instance here, we'll look at this as wave B with 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5. So we can tie that into Apple and Amazon. So we'll look for it here. But this is quite good. I like it when you've got a big number here and it comes back below here, because this will, if we're going to be trading to the long side, we'll be looking to be building in long positions over here based on an impulse wave over here. So I like when it dips down below a level and comes back up and gives us a nice thing to work off, and then we'll be building in through 1, 2, and 3 over here, 10, 20, and 30. Netflix. So I've changed this count back again because I want to look at wave 2. I want to look at this as a zigzag pattern, a 5-3-5 pattern. So we'll be looking at something like this here. I can see 3 different ways to count all of this, right? So it doesn't matter. What we do know is that we need to come down here further. So we don't need to do anything just yet, There's nothing, as I mentioned last week, there was nothing to do last week unless you were going to short. This is a case here where this market, we can place wave 1 here. This would be the same as the banks. Google hasn't been a bit slow on the AI situation. How this actually comes down, I mean, we can see this it's kind of, we could see it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know on the daily chart's a little bit different than that, and you could sort of WXY it and do a few other little fancy bit of footworks. But at the end of the day, what I can say with confidence is that this move here is a corrective move. So that means that this low needs to be taken out. And then if the low needs to be taken out, normally what you'd be looking at is that is some sort of equality between wave A and wave C, and that would bring us down into the 50-60% mark here. So this is very much in line with banks. Does that mean that Apple and all the rest of those could do that? It's quite possible, but we have to just move one step at a time. Okay, so over to Microsoft, and Microsoft here. I could go from wave B here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and finish it off on this one here. But this here is overlapping the top of this one, so I can't really put that there as such. Wave 3 there, wave 4 there, really. So it's not going to work. And because the other markets need time to go down, this is going to be moving down further here as well. Could we put this as a B wave over here? Absolutely. We could do the same with that again, but I'm not going to move it just yet, and I've just don't want to make the video too long. So we come over to Tesla. I want to have a look at it in 2 ways. So one way is this is a weekly chart here, or 2 weeks. Nothing special about 2 weeks, just gives me a clean canvas. So we've been looking at this in a couple of different ways. So one of the important things here, one of the takeaways from if you're asking me about my confidence in things, is that sure, I understand that the EV market is under a lot of pressure from China. I understand the fundamental side of that to a point. It's all over YouTube and news and whatever. In terms of Elliott Wave, this particular move down through here, it's corrective. It's not an impulse wave, right? But this point here, this here can be counted as a corrective move, right? So if this is a corrective move, it means that this low can come out. It doesn't mean that it needs to come out. I can see that the 200 here, and you can see it as well, is really a balance point for this particular pattern. And that's what I try to look for in corrections. I try to find the balance point and what price point that is. And we're just seeing the market vibrate across that. It's getting to the point where this market is really sort of maturing at this point. But obviously, if it is going to be a triangle in ABCD, then it would still need to make another move lower to test that trend, this lower end trend line here. So that means that we could look at it to move down here further like this here. One of the interesting things here in using the trading levels, I would always be looking for high. So I'd go long above this high. And if this drops back down here, then I'll use that as a long trade setup. So then that tells me, because I know that this point over here, this move here is corrective, is it possible to look at this in terms of being bullish? Well, there's a couple of ways to look at it. We could look at this as 1 and 2 over to here. We could also look at this here as a WXY here and put wave 2 here, and then work this as a leading wave 1 to the upside and 2 here. So as long as this 2 here stays in place, that would be fine, but we could also bring wave 2 over to here as well. It doesn't really matter about all of these patterns that I'm showing. All we need to do is to go long above these. That's the long trade setup, because we would start from the top here, and then we'll drop it down to this one, and then we'll drop it down to this one, and we can drop it down to this one. So we're in the later stages of all of this here. So we're just, markets are just trends and corrections, and this one's maturing. And so it's not ready yet. I'm not going to go into the intraday because I've been burning up time. And then we come over to Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin here, there's a couple of things here. I mean, the move up in the SP 500 and the NASDAQ and the banks and so on. I'll just get that here. So this date here in, before Christmas in 2023 is basically the same as the NASDAQ here, the same low here. So we're in the same trend. Now, obviously, Bitcoin, has been remolded and entered into Wall Street, through ETFs and options, and they're not convertible back into Bitcoin or anything like that. They're keeping them into cash, which is a bit selfish, but they've got to protect their own products. I remember when CFDs came, into the West from England in the because they were a wholesale product of originally, and and they came in around the 2000 mark, but the Americans wouldn't let the CFDs into their marketplace, because they had the options there, so they didn't want that threatened. So I understand the protectionism of it all, but we can, in a nutshell, look at Bitcoin and the NASDAQ or tech stocks sort of doing much the same thing. The only difference is that Bitcoin's actually been a little bit slower, really, because it's only just gotten to the top over here in this case, So when we look at the NASDAQ here, this is the old top here, but the NASDAQ has taken this top out here, right? So, and this same dates, back here, roughly speaking, because these two markets here, they'll sort of chuff along together, but they can move out of one another and do all sorts of things, and then they'll sort of come back in. But I mean, the NASDAQ took out the tops here. Bitcoin didn't do that. Had the ETFs and all the rest of it. It sort of reformed itself, and anyway, long sort of story short. The thing here is that this particular pattern that we've got here is corrective in nature. This first bit, like Tesla, this first bit here is corrective. So at some point we need to be taking out this top. I don't know, to be honest, if it's going to be this one here, we put wave 4 here, or we're going to put wave 4 over here and we get another little move down here. When I look at Ethereum and stuff, I feel like we can actually come down here further. So yeah, a deeper move into the 50 here is likely, but we'll see how it plays out from weekly to daily here. The way that we've got it so far is wave 4 here with wave 1 here and ABC for wave 2 here. But it's really quite low here, so putting this over here somewhere would also be would be sensible, put it that way. And if it came down here, well then the first level is 48 and then 45. And when you talk about 48 here, you talk about group 2, so you can go 47, 20 and 46, 500, those sort of things within group 2 here. So it'll be interesting to see. We know that the NASDAQ is going to come down further, not much, but some of those tech stocks will come down further. So it's really starting to test this low here. And let's face it, this move up here, whichever way you want to look at this, you could also put wave 1 over here and have an A and a B and a C wave over here. But either way, whichever way you want to look at this, it's not a fantastic impulse wave to the upside. Yes, you can make it work. So it's more likely that this is going to be the case over here. Yeah, now I don't know if I've updated this on any of these, so let me just have a look at 1000 ticks here. Okay, so let me just bring this in here a bit further. So if we're looking at wave 1 top over here, we can look at all of this down here as wave A, and then B, and then 1 and 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 here. That might need to go over here. So wave 4s get a bit complicated, but down for wave 5 of 3 and 4 and 5. So very much like the NASDAQ to finish off here in that case, if I looked at it as an A and a B and a C wave down here. So this is sort of grasping at straws, really, having wave 2 here, but I'll leave it here for the time being. We know that we could also quite easily come down into group 2 here, which would be like 48, and then we got 45 here for that, roughly speaking, and then group 2 on that would be 40. I saw it there, 46, 500 and 47, 20 roughly there. Those that would be the sort of zone here for support at that point, but we'll see. So we're either coming down to here or we come down to here. Alrighty, I'll leave it at that. Apologies for such a long video, and thanks for tuning in. Cheers.